despite the fact that Jim Harbaugh's not going to be there. But with the Connor Stallions sign stealing, in addition to the recruiting violations, suspensions he's had to serve all season, with the fact that Ryan Day, some people are calling for his job if he can't win this game. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master of Football back at it again. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things college football, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also the like button too, and follow me on Twitter/X. That fam is growing. Without further ado, let's get into the video. For those of you who don't know college football, well, actually, hold on, let me rephrase that. For those of you who have crappy existences, this week is rivalry week. There's going to be games across the board that are going to be so huge. And again, throw out the records, throw out everything like that. There's so many games you have to pay attention to. We've got the last iteration of Texas Tech versus Texas. We've got the Egg Bowl. We've got the Iron Bowl. We've got the Apple Cup. We've got the Platypus Trophy between Oregon and Oregon State. There's so many games across the board. One, however, seems to be more important than ever. And you find that out from a very, very odd spelling in a social media post on X. So Ohio State here says, congrats to our own Broyles Award finalist, Jim Jix Knowles, Broyles Award sexafinalist. That's right. For those of you who are uninitiated, it is the big game, Ohio State versus Michigan. One of the oldest and most bitter and fiercest, one of the best rivalries in all of college sports, and maybe in all of sports in general, happens this Saturday. It is absolutely amazing. Going to be a big noon kickoff. And this year it feels a little bit different. There's so many different dynamics to look at. There's the beginning of Ohio State season, the fact that Michigan was dominating up until this point, the whole Jim Harbaugh scandal. We're going to go through all of it here because this year is just a little bit different than it was years before. This article here on ESPN came out on November 16th, and it highlights a little bit here of the timeline regarding Jim Harbaugh, his suspension for this, the sign stealing, the coaching turnover, here, there, boop, 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 all of that. It goes through all that. It really highlights how, like I said, unique this Ohio State versus Michigan game is going to be. The article writes here, it says, it's been an eventful year at Michigan. Long before the sign stealing allegations and long before the football team steamrolled opponents to a 10-0 record while seeking its third consecutive CFP berth, the Wolverines have been surrounded by controversy. It started days into the new year when one day Michigan received an NCAA notice of allegations regarding recruiting violations and put out a statement that Jim Harbaugh, despite his NFL overtures, would be staying in Ann Arbor for 2023. I'm a Raiders fan. Don't trust me. I was like, hey, maybe he comes to the NFL? No, he's staying in college. From there, things only get stranger. There was the assistant fired for computer access crimes and another staffer who happened to be the son of legendary coach Bo Schembechler, resigning 3 days after being hired because of his social media activity. Michigan has continued to thrive on the field despite all the chaos. Harbaugh will serve a second suspension of the year after the Big Ten banned him from the final 3 games of the regular season for violating the league's sportsmanship policy. In quotes here, it says he missed the first 3 games as the school self-imposed a penalty for related to the recruiting violations. If you've had trouble keeping up, here's a full rundown of the past 10 months of drama in Ann Arbor. So the first one here was that recruiting violation where it says Michigan receives a draft of an NCAA notice of allegations which alleges violations of impermissible contact with recruits during NCAA mandated dead periods as well as off-field analysts being involved in on-field coaching activities, a violation of NCAA rules. It is reported that Harbaugh allegedly met recruits and bought them hamburgers at a local restaurant in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm telling you, that home field advantage, he knows what he's doing, man. The big thing, though, with this and the big reason why he got in trouble was not so much that he did that buying hamburgers. It's like, okay, what are you doing there? The big issue was that he lied about it. And again, that right there, that's the same thing where it's like, you can do something, but if you do something and you lie about it to authorities, it's a serious issue. On January 20th, Michigan fires co-offensive coordinator Matt Weiss after it says he failed to attend a meeting to discuss whether he gained, quote, unauthorized access to computer accounts assigned to other people in December of 2022, so just the month before. University of Michigan police have confirmed there was an active investigation regarding potential computer crimes at the Schembechler Hall football building at the university. In a letter obtained by the AP, informed Weiss it had evidence he, quote, inappropriately accessed others' accounts. Weiss spent the 2021 and 2022 seasons with the Wolverines, most recently as co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And then we talk about Glenn Shemmy Schembechler, the son of legendary coach Schembechler, resigns after 3 days. Resigns 3 days after he was hired as the football program's assistant director of football recruiting. And one of the reasons why was because he had several suggesting that slavery and Jim Crow laws had a positive effect of strengthening black people and families. And again, we're not going to, this is not a political show. You could go comment on there. But again, that was, so we had January, and then we had May, and now we get all the way here to July 25th. On July 25th, it says that Yahoo Sports and ESPN's Pete Thamel report that Michigan and NCAA were working towards a negotiated resolution in the infractions case that included a 4-game suspension for Harbaugh to start the 2023 season. And again, here it says reports on August 12th. It said reports resurfaced that negotiated resolution between Harbaugh and the NCAA enforcement staff was not approved by the NCAA commitment on infractions. Eventually, Michigan self-imposed on the 21st of August a 3-game suspension to start the 2023 season, basically against East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. And then we get to October. The NCAA notifies the Big Ten and Michigan that it received allegations that the Wolverines were involved in a sign-stealing scheme and it allegedly sent representatives to the games to scout future opponents, which has been prohibited by the NCAA rules since 1994. You can scout teams, you can talk, map their signs and all, but if you send somebody there beforehand, certain schools can't do that, which is the reason why, again, it's a rule that's put in place so that the big teams that have lots of payroll can't take advantage of the small teams. I understand why it's there, despite the fact it's kind of a weird gray area whether or not it's illegal or not, because they're like, no, it's actually illegal. But doing it in an illegal way is illegal, which is, okay, technically it's illegal. And then we have the awesome Connor Stalions. The memes were incredible with Connor Stalions. He was absolutely incredible. On the 19th, it found that he was the center of the NCAA investigation, and he purchased tickets on the 23rd to 11 big games over the last 3 seasons. A 12th school later added the Stallions had purchased tickets in his stadium as well. There was also sometimes they might saw him on the sidelines of a Central Michigan games. It was crazy. And then finally, on November 10th, Michigan suspends Jim Harbaugh for the remainder of the regular season games at Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. They've already beaten Penn State, they've already beaten Maryland, and now they have the big game coming up. And over here on Maize and Brew, this came out on the 3rd. It says Michigan is gathering evidence involving private investigators being linked to Ohio State per report. But again, all that is basically saying is that private investigators found all this stuff out. So Michigan is getting bad at Ohio State for gathering information. Again, they're trying to state that it's a political hit job because Ohio State's afraid of Michigan. I totally get it. But again, you still have to find some wrongdoing here. There's nothing wrong with hiring some private investigators. And this game is remarkable because just the last game at Maryland, they won the first team to 1,000 career wins. Now, I know people will say, oh yeah, some of these were against YMCA teams, some of these were against high school teams. Again, those are ancient games. But the first team to 1,000 wins, Michigan. Look who's number 2, Ohio State. Number 1 in wins, number 2 in wins, playing this Saturday. And it's important to remember this series history it's kind of been dominated by Ohio State for like the last, 15 years ago. It's 2004 all the way to 2019, 14 and 1. One of them was no conference, so technically it's 13 and 1 because they just kind of vacated it there. But Michigan hadn't been winning very much. But these last two, 42-27 and 45-23 in Ann Arbor and in Columbus. And now they play back in Ann Arbor again. Michigan leads the series +9, 60-51. And those last 2 games are rather interesting because it's been kind of a tale of 2 teams, whereas Ohio State, dynamic on the outside, C.J. Stroud, good quarterbacks, lots of speed, lots of guys who can play in the NFL. How many stud receivers they had drafted, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and Jigma. How many first-round receivers they had there is incredible. But Michigan, their method to beat them, come down here and check this out. 41 carries, 297 rushing, and 6 touchdowns. This was the game in 2021. So you're thinking, okay, now next year at Ohio State, it's going to be a different story. And it wasn't because, again, it wasn't as dominant on the ground. 252 and 3 touchdowns, still 7 yards a carry. Pretty good. But you see the fact that you add in J.J. McCarthy, 12 for 24, 263 and 3 touchdowns, 500-plus yards of offense against Ohio State, forces some turnovers. Even with that dominance outside, Michigan goes into the horseshoe and wins again. And Ohio State fans have been pretty upset about that. To understand how important this game is, this article's title alone is something you have to ask. Ryan Day has won an incredible amount of games he's had out there at Ohio State. Almost 90% of his games he's won. However, the last 2 years, he's lost to the wrong team. And you think about their top flight recruiting classes, you shouldn't be losing games ever. He should be winning national championships. That's how important these games are. Think about this. He's gone 22-0 in the regular season the last 2 years. However, the last game for last year, he lost the last game. And if he loses this game this year, it's going to be tough to go back to that, the boosters and say, oh, sorry, I couldn't beat him again. Now, there are some questions I have about Ohio State. There's plenty about Michigan. The fact they're missing their head coach, the fact that with Jim Harbaugh not there, they've been kind of questionable on offense the last couple of weeks here. We've also seen the fact that Maryland could actually push the ball down the field on them. But Ohio State has to fix some things out here that I'm not so sure they're necessarily aligned up for. We come down here and check out that what they have is that standard issue. I won't even say standard issue. Well, I will say standard issue because a lot of teams now have a verified or an alternate version of a 3-3-5 defense, 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and then 5 defensive backs, 3 safeties on the field. But we see the fact that these 3 guys up front, JT Tuimolau, Ty Hamilton, and Tyleik Williams, all 3 of them, 270 for JT, 295 for Hamilton, and 290, 295 for Mr. Williams there. The big issue with that, though, is the fact that up front, to try and stop that team, we saw the fact those last 2 seasons, 250 plus rushing yards up the middle against the Ohio State defense. Can they address that this year? Because they're certainly good on defense. Are they physical enough to match Michigan? Now, we have that question whether or not they're physical enough on defense, but we know they're going to be just fine on offense because Trayon Henderson, who if you check this last year, 2022, he did not play against Ohio State last season. He is healthy this year. The 5'10", 212 running back, he is going to be in the game. I suspect he's going to help them out a lot. But he's not the only one who's going to help his team out because of the lack of injuries that they have. We come down here and check this out just the other day here. Sharon Moore says that Roman Wilson, receiver, Miles Hinton, and Ladarius Henderson should be good to go against Ohio State. So you think about that. Trayon Henderson, Roman Wilson, everything is lined up for a true heavyweight fight. I kind of wish Jim Harbaugh was there because, again, it would just make sure it was one of those things where it was like iron against iron, the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. I want to see that on Saturday. But even with Jim Harbaugh not being there, this game right now, currently, the Michigan Wolverines have a 3.5-point advantage according to Las Vegas. And again, we see the money line here, Michigan minus 178, Ohio State plus 146 total. Over under is 46.5. It is going to be an absolutely incredible game. This game is going to be one of the best games of the year, despite the fact that Jim Harbaugh is not going to be there. But with the Connor Stallions sign stealing, in addition to the recruiting violations, suspensions he's had to serve all season, with the fact that Ryan Day, some people are calling for his job if he can't win this game. To remember that before he's gone 22-0 before this game in the last 2 seasons combined. But again, this is Michigan, Ohio State. It's a huge game. Who do you think is going to win the game? Get in the comments and let me know. All right, guys, let me know what you guys think about all of that. And if you have any questions, let me know. Get in the comments what kind of videos you want to see. And also with this one, too, I'm interested in what your bet is. Where are you putting your money at? You let me know. But that's it for me, guys. I will see you guys later. I am out.